Hi everyone. In this video, let's create our REST APIs for the blog post. First, we need authentication and then we will be able to create, update or delete blog posts. For API authentication, we will be using Laravel Sanctum. I have just added login and register workflow in our application. In case you want to add reset password functionality, you can refer to the video link above for Laravel Sanctum. I will also leave the link in the description as well. So let me show you first what I have added for the authentication and then we'll start working on our blog routes. So what I have done is created a group route with a middleware of guest. So only unauthenticated user can make the register or login request. Inside I have created a group route with a prefix of auth. And then two routes, one for the register and one for the login. Then I create a new controller, inside controller, API, auth controller. And inside this controller I've defined two methods. The first method is for the register and the second is for the login. Inside the register method, we are just validating the request first, then getting back the fillable attributes, and then we are just adding the hashed password, and then we are creating the user. Once the user is created, we are just creating an auth token and sending back as a response. And the response is going to be JSON. Now inside the login method, we are validating the request and then we are just checking the email of the user if it exists inside our system. Otherwise, we are throwing back the error. If not, if the user exists, we are just creating the token and then sending back it as a response. So now that we have our authentication set up, let's work on our blog routes. So inside the api.php file, we have this route to get the user detail once he's authenticated. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this statement and I'm going to make a grouped routes. So inside this group route, the first route I'm going to create is for the user detail. So route get /user and I'm going to write a closure. So it is going to contain a request and we will return simply the user that is authenticated in this request. And that's pretty much it. Oh, I forgot to add this. And let's also give it a name of user, or since we do have the user.detail in the web routes, let's not mix this one up and I'm gonna say API-user.detail. Next, I'm gonna create a group route for blogs. So route with a prefix of blog group function, and let's define our routes. So there are three routes that we need to make for blog. One for creating the blog post, one for updating the blog post, and the third one for deleting it. So the first one is going to route post store, and so first let's create a new controller. So I'm going to say PHP artisan make controller, and I want it to be inside the API directory inside the controllers. So app http and controllers API. Here I want to add a new controller named blog API controller. So now let's use it here. So blog API controller class, and the method name is going to be store. But we are going to work on this after creating the routes. So let's give it a name of API-blog.store. And I'm just going to copy this one and paste it 2 more times. So now let's modify this one for the update. It is going to be of type patch, and we are going to pass in the ID. The method name is going to be update, and the name is also going to be API-blog.update. The last route is going to be for the deleting the blog post. So it is going to be delete/blog ID. The name is also going to be delete, and the method name is also going to be delete. And that's it for the API routes. Next, now let's work on our blogs API controller. And inside the first method I'm going to define is for the storing the blog post. So let's create a method. It is going to accept a request, and let's define our logic here. So the first thing I want to do is validate the request. So what we can do is go into our blog controller. It is going to be pretty much same, but I'm going to just copy the request validation first and modify it a little bit. So instead of going for request validate, what I'm going to do is create a variable named validator, use the validator class, eliminate support facade, and make. Inside, the first parameter is going to be the attributes, so all the attributes in the request. The second one is going to be the rules, so let's cut it from here and paste it here, and that's it. Now we need to get rid of this one, and next we are going to check if the validator fails. So validator fails, then we are going to return the response as a JSON. So for this, let's go into auth controller. Since we want consistent response, so what I'm going to do is copy this one from here and paste it here. And what I'm going to do is success is going to be false. The message is going to be, let's leave the message. The data is going to be null, and error is going to be validator errors. And of course, we need to pass in the status code, so response. And the status code is going to be 422, which is unprocessable entity. Alright, so we are making the validation, and the rest of the logic is pretty much same. So let's copy it from the blog controller. Let's copy all from here and paste it right below the validation. So what we are doing is getting all the attributes from the request which are fillable, then appending the creator ID, then we are just creating the blog post, and if there is any image, then we are storing that one, and then we are redirecting the user. But in case of our API response, we are not going to redirect user to any page, so it is also going to be a JSON response. So let's copy this one, paste it here. Success is going to be true, and the data is going to be null. The error is going to be empty, and let's add the message to be blog created. And the response code is going to be 201, which is HTTP created. So now we have completed our storing process, and now let's work on our updating the blog post. So function, the name is going to be update. It is going to accept the request, and we are going to use route model binding. So blog, and now here let's define our logic. The first thing is validating the request, so I'm just going to copy paste this one here. And next we are just going to go into blog controller and copy the logic from here, except for the return, because that is going to be a JSON response. Let's paste it here. So we are doing the same thing again. So we are getting the fillable attributes, we are updating them, and if there exists any image, then we are deleting the previous stored image from the database as well as from the storage, and then we are just storing the new image. Let me quickly import this one, and we are good to go now. And the last thing we need to add now is the response. So return response JSON, and success is going to be true. Message is going to be blog updated, and data is up to us, so we can pass in the blog or we can just send it null. And the response code is going to be HTTP OK, so 200. And that's it for the update method. So now the last method is going for the delete. So let's create that method. Delete. It is also going to accept the parameter of request and the blog. And the code is going to be very simple. So first we are going to delete the image, and then we're just going to delete the blog post. So let's copy that one from here as well. And the response. So response JSON success is going to be true. Message is going to be blog deleted. And data can be null. Since we want the consistent response, that is why we are appending the data to every response. And the response code is also going to be HTTP OK. Alright, so we have defined all our routes that are required to create, update, and delete blog posts. Next, let's work on the profile API and the index API. So the logic for our profile and the home page or index API are going to be the same as written here. So what I'm going to do is create a new controller first. So PHP artisan make controller, and I'm going to name it user API controller. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy these two, open up our API controller, and paste it here. And we only need to change the response type. So instead of view, we are going to return a JSON response. So response JSON, and the success is going to be true. Data is going to be blogs, and we don't need the message actually, let's leave it. And the response is going to be, and the response code is going to be OK. And I'm just going to copy this response from here and paste it in here. Let's add the blog and the user model, and let's pass in the user here. So that's it. So now we have the API for the index page, and we also have the API for profile page. Let's define the routes for them. So inside here, above this store route, I'm going to create another route, and it is going to be of type get, and we can say list, and it's not going to hit that. Actually, what we can do is remove this method from here, and so we can move it inside the blogs API controller and rename it to index. And I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so now go back to the api.php. The method name is index, and give it a name of index as well. So we have the route for this index page or home page. Now we just need a route for profile page. So above this grouped route of blog, I'm going to create, actually what I'm going to do is use this user route, and we are going to refer to user API controller class, and the method name is show, if I'm not wrong. Yes, and we need to pass in the user ID. So let's add that. And that's pretty much it. So we have completed our APIs as well. So now this is time to check our APIs. So for that, I'm going to use Postman. And what I have done is created a collection inside the Postman and created the routes. So we have a register route of type post. The route link is going to be here, and the parameters or the form body. So let's try creating a user. And now we are getting back the response. The user is now created, and we are getting back the token as a response. Also, let's create an environment here first. So I'm gonna say Laravel blog, and I'm going to name the variable token, and let's copy the value of this token and paste it in here, current value. Let's close this one. use this blog environment. And now what we need to do is let's first try logging our user in. So I'm going to use the credential we have just created as user. So send, and we are getting back the response and the token is there. So let's update the token. And now let's try to get our user detail. So if I hit this one, and also we need to add the headers to accept JSON, so we can see the proper error or the response, and not found exception. So let's go back to our routes, and what we define here is user/id. Okay, so our user ID was 2. So let's add 2, hit send, and we are getting back the response unauthenticated, which is quite fine. The reason is that we have added the authorization to bearer token, but we haven't added the token actually. So let's use the token from our environment, and now hit send. And now you can see that we are getting back the response of our user that is logged in. So our login, register, and detail API are working. So now let's try creating a blog, updating it, and deleting it. First, let's try with the list. So I'm just going to add the token here and hit send. Actually, we also need to add the accept JSON. In case there is any error, we won't be able to see it if we haven't defined the accept to JSON. So now we are getting back the response. So we can see that there is one data. So this is for the home page or the index API. So we are getting all the blog posts. So it is working. Next, let's try to create a new blog post. And this time I'm not going to select any file. Just hit send. And same thing, we need to add the token. And we need to accept application JSON. Now let's hit send, and now we can see that blog has been created. So now if I go to the list API, hit send, and we can see our newly created blog post. So if I go to the form title, so you can see the title is going to be an API blog post, and description is description. So we are seeing our blog post as well. So this means our storing API is also working. So let's update the title and the description, and now hit send. Actually, we need to append the correct ID at the end of this URL. So if I go to listing again, the ID is 2. So let's add that. Oops. Hit send, and we missed the token. Also accept JSON. Hit send now. And we are getting back the error, the title is required and the body is required. So in order to fix that, we have to change the type of the request to post and manually add method to be patched. Now hit send. We can see our blog post has been updated. So our 3 routes are working pretty nicely. Listing is working, the store is working, the update is working. And let's try out our delete. So it is going to be post, and the form data is going to include underscore method, and the value is going to be delete. And the blog post ID is 2. So let's add the token first. Add the accept header in case there is any error. So let's hit send. So now we can see that the blog has been deleted. Now let's take a look at the list API. So now we can see that our blog post has actually been deleted, which means that our APIs are working correctly. So with the APIs working, we are nearing the end of this tutorial series. The code is already pushed on GitHub, and the link is also available in the description. There is going to be one more video though, in which I will show you how to refactor some code so that our controllers are cleaner, and that will also help you understand which logic should go. Thank you for watching this series, and I will see you in the final video.